I'm Kelsey McNulty, and I play keyboards and accordion with the Great Lake Swimmers. So this is like my workhorse, the Nord. A lot of people use this as a workhorse. I like to dress it up a little because it makes it look a little more exciting, and because it's such a common keyboard, sometimes when I'm seeing bands that have one, I'm thinking about what patches they're using, and I don't want people to be thinking about that when I'm playing, so I figure, they can wonder about what kind of animal it is, But anyways, I do use the Hammond patch a fair bit, but I've also built, the Nord has sampling capabilities, so I'm really into like transistor organs. I have a bunch at home, and so I've sampled my Acetone, which is a keyboard from the 60s. It was one of the first electronic keyboards that Roland ever made. It was called the Acetone. So I sampled it into Logic. I sampled about an octave and a half, and then the rest is just mapped across the keyboard, so it's the sample that's been sort of, it gets shorter and shorter as it goes, but I sampled it for a long time so that I would never run out of the note. So I use that patch a lot with this band. It's kind of, it's the flute stop on it, and it's like, feels like you're being wrapped in a warm blanket. It just has like a really warm sound. So it almost has like a string kind of vibe to it, but it has a warble because there's a vibrato on that keyboard. Anyways, I ran it through a reverb pedal. I'll start at the beginning of the chain, which is an overdrive, which I only use really on the Rhodes patch, and sometimes on that patch if I want it to get really gnarly and out of control. This is a company in Ottawa, Ontario, called Fairfield Circuitry. They make pretty wacky, exciting pedals. Really like this one. It's called a Barbershop. Really like it for overdrive. It just gives it a nice bite. The sag is like emulates sort of the dying battery sound, and then the drive. And so the sag kind of takes the volume down, and drive turns it up, and then you can balance the volume here. Really like this pedal. This one's sort of new to my chain. I like a delay on the organ sometimes, especially in this style of music. But this one is sort of new to me, but it's a tape delay. And so it has 3 different tape machines that it's emulating there. And this is a fellow named Chris Moore who makes them pretty damn fine electronics. It's exciting and adventurous as well. These are 2 kind of like exciting pedals. And then Not the Hall of Fame is not exciting, but it's a little more steady. It's got a bunch of different reverbs. I tend to use the Mod a lot. Has a nice warble on it, and really like the Tile. More for like soul and R&B stuff I use the Tile, but in this band I tend to use this. And so that's kind of what I use. I also have a piano sound that I use on here. It's kind of a workhorse of keyboards, and most people know the Nord can do a lot of things pretty well. Up here I have, this is a micro sampler. So this keyboard came out in about 2008, 2009, and it's an awesome sampling keyboard. It's so easy to use. I use it, and I made some string samples mixed with synth sounds, and then I can play it. And then while I'm playing this here, I can have this sound sort of happening. And I've made that sound so I know when it's going to die out roughly. It's about 20 seconds long, and then I've sampled stuff from the album too. Really fun, also for entertainment value. You can sample just about anything on this keyboard. So any audio file, if you hook it up to your computer, if you have a 1/4-inch cable to an 1/8-inch cable, just to like entertain myself and the guys during sound check. Sometimes I sample silly things like, it also takes a while to switch banks. That's a good thing to know about this keyboard. It takes a while, but and then you sample some crazy string stuff. It's really fun. Anyways, very fun keyboard. This one is the Mini Juno. I actually only used this on a couple tunes, but it has, the Boutique series of Roland came out about 4 years ago, and they did a small keyboard version of the Jupiter 08, which I think came out in like 81, and then the JX, I forget the other keyboard, I've never used it, but it's another 80s synth, and then the Juno 106, which I have a real one at home, and so I got the small model because it's easier for touring. It does a pretty good job, and really good bass synth sounds, and I use it for a few other things, but they're all running in, because I like to run my stuff through a tube amp. This is a guy in Toronto who makes some board tough. They're called Hero amps. It's like a Bernie circuit, which is a circuit that was popular in the 60s, I think. Don't quote me on that. For tube amps. So pretty simple. All it has is volume, tone, has a trem that I don't use that often, but it's really good. It is made for guitars, but I really like the sound of keyboards through it. It's a 12-inch speaker, 50-watt amp, I think. So I run all of my keyboards into this pedal, which is just basically a passive mixer. Harder to find one with this many than you would think. This is a company in California that makes them called Rucci Electronics. I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name properly, but I think his name is Michael Rucci. Anyways, it's great. Makes it so that I only have one input on that amp, and I like the sound of that amp, so I can put all three through and run a single line to my amp. Volume pedal, just for swells and stuff. Sustain pedal for piano Rhodes. Also works as a Leslie thing. And then to the accordion. Playing accordion with a drummer, especially right beside you, is kind of can be a tricky thing to mic up. But over the years, I've found it easiest to put to sort of mix myself. So I have a clip-on. Often clip-ons are oh my gosh, brain fart. It's the opposite of a dynamic mic, a condenser mic. So oftentimes clip-ons are condenser mics, but this one's a dynamic one, so it doesn't feed back as easily, and is also a little less bassy, which I like because there's already a bass player in this band. And then this is just a Beta 57. And I mix the signal myself for the two sides of the accordion, because I found that for years of like playing live, I was trying to get the sound guy to like, oh, turn up the bass a little, turn it down a little, and get the perfect balance and the perfect EQ, and that seems, it's kind of unfair, and it takes a long time in sound check. So I mix myself and send a signal. So you can see this is the bass end, and then this is the right hand, the piano side, and I've mixed them. I have my volume sort of set and my peaks, my gain set, and then I just send a line out from the mixer. And I found this to be the easiest setup, especially when, like, if you're setting up for a festival and you have only a line check or whatever. It makes it really easy for me. And then we work on the EQ of the overall accordion rather than trying to get the volumes right. This is my travel accordion. It's a Weltmeister, which is a German make, and still made in Germany. A lot of people have outsourced accordion making to China. They still make them there, and it has a really bright sound, a really lovely musette. And it's also my other accordions are a little bit woodier, which I really like the sound of for smaller bands, but this accordion cuts really well, and I like it for that. And it is obviously a pretty small keyboard. Also, I think they call these lady size keys. You don't have to be a lady to play these size keys, but that's what they called them in the past. Maybe with the times a change, and maybe they've called it something else, but as far as I know, it's still lady keys. And the bass is actually a really small bass. A standard bass would be 120 keys. So this is only a 60 bass. So the first two rows of an accordion, all your chords are sort of based on this row. So here in this indented one, I don't know if you can see that, that would be C. And so down from C you would have C major triad, C minor triad, C dominant, and usually you would have diminished, you'd have this extra row, and then up from it are also root notes, but they're major thirds above, so C, E, and then you get a nice walk up if you're doing like, if it's more an accordion-centric band and you're sort of covering bass lines, you get nice walk-ups from that. But this is only 60 bass, so you don't have diminished chords, which, to be honest, I hardly use in this, this sort of band anyway, so it doesn't really make a big deal, or it doesn't really matter too much. Find us on Instagram at great_lake_swimmers, and also on Twitter at Great Lake Swim. Thanks very much.